wait, we can scale blockchains at the network layer. If we send information fast,
I'm curious, how does the user specify this? Like, does this happen at the app level or at the user level? Can the user really specify they don't want to be associated with a validator?
How does Paladin align incentives? You mentioned, the idea of Paladin is to align incentives, especially for non-malicious or, honest leaders, right? How are the incentives aligned?
excellent question. So it goes like,
Hello, welcome to another episode of the OnlyDevs podcast. Today we have with us Uri, the founder of bloXroute, and he's also the creator of the Paladin project. Welcome to the show, Uri.
thank you guys, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So this is we like the first question we typically like to ask our guests is what's your background? What pulled you into crypto?
Okay, so I am a crypto guy, but before that, I'm really a networking guy, right? So way back then, when I was a software engineer back in Israel, and then I figured, you know what? Being a software engineer is kind of boring for me. Like, it's kind of like, okay, you do the same thing, etc. I want to do something else. So me and my wife moved here to the US, and I did my PhD at Northwestern University, where I still live. And my PhD is in computer networks. So I am a networking guy, TCP and Quick and like Wi-Fi and like MU-MIMO and cool stuff like in that world, etc. So I'm a networking guy. And through my research, I had a project which kind of like pivoted from one thing to another. By the way, if you're not from academia, the idea is you build something, you write it, etc. You send it to like a conference and you get rejected. And then, just very much like a startup, it's got, okay, how do we take the work we already did and we pivot it? You slightly change the story. Maybe we do this, maybe we do that. So we already built a system, and that didn't go to one conference, then to the other, etc. Eventually, we turned it into like a proof of work, like it's called WebCoin. It's a proof of work like chain that instead of hashing, it scrapes the internet, right? So it creates like an index, like Google, like Bing. That was, as a research project, it's pretty cool. But that's how I kind of got into that world. But then, and we're talking like 2016 or so, that was like the block size wars on Bitcoin Cash, should we make blocks bigger, etc. So back then, me and my then advisor, now co-founder, Professor 𝗜𝗺𝗽𝗀, we were kind of like, wait, we can scale blockchains at the network layer. If we send information fast, we could allow for larger blocks at shorter time intervals. So the original idea of bloXroute, it's called bloXroute because we route blocks and transactions, is to send blockchain data fast. So that was the idea, and we kind of like how I got into crypto. Now, I never wanted to be a founder. I was on my way to academia. We were kind of like, you do a project, then you do another. Like, it's interesting. You have a lot of flexibility in what you do. But I remember me and Alex were sitting in a room like, oh, we could do this and this, and here's how it makes money. Like, this is $1 billion idea. Like, we can't not do it. I never Alex has like startup like background before that. Like I never wanted to do, like I'm a technical guy. I'm a dev. Like, what do I know about like starting a company and etc. It was too big of an idea. So when we started bloXroute, and bloXroute is the same, like it's a BDN, a blockchain distribution network, right? We send information fast, we hear information fast with like servers all around the world and some cool technologies around that. And then we really found product market fit in 2019, 2020, when DeFi became a thing, right? So leading into the DeFi summer, all of a sudden, everybody in the world wanted to see information fast, and they wanted to send information fast, right? Everybody wanted to know what's the latest price. This was like on Ethereum, still proof of work. So everybody wanted to connect to the mining pools to get their blocks faster and send their trade to the miners and see what the other people are sending, right? This was when MEV started to become a thing, and send their transaction without being seen by other people. So like we had front-running protection product before Flashbot existed even, okay? Like we're talking 2019. And so like mid-19 or something like that. So I never wanted to do any of it, but once you go into crypto, you kind of like that. How could I do anything else in the world? So we built this, and that was like, I think, our 0 to 1 moment. We may move from making zero money to like 10 million a year or something like that. And so now bloXroute is like a big company. We started on Ethereum, expanded to BSC. We did Polygon too, although we deprecated that and sunsetted it not long ago. We're very big on Solana. And in all these places, we have like, okay, we use our infrastructure to allow people to land transaction really fast, to hear transaction and blocks and shreds really fast. So that's kind of like how I got into crypto, quite by accident.
So you mentioned one, just double clicking on that, right? One thing I found fascinating was, well, how does bloXroute actually send this, transaction faster, right? Like what specifically is it? Private links or?
So there are four things like doing it, right? You could imagine bloXroute has like servers all around the world where we try to propagate information fast, and one of them is just like, okay, good connectivity and connecting you don't want to connect from here through there, right? You don't want to go if you're from, US East to US West, you don't go through Europe or whatever. It's just like, okay, constantly connecting the right like links. And we do have private links as well, etc. But basic piece number one is just like good topology. You want to connect it that way, both close to the validators who could be anywhere in the world, but also close to the users, wherever they are in the world, right? Maybe it's your phone. You take your dog out and you walk outside. So I need to be close to your neighborhood. So if you're like, you walk the dog, you open the phone, because that's what we all do. You open Phantom or whatever, like, oh, I should buy this or sell that or long this. We should be very close to you to get your transaction as fast as possible and land it as fast as possible. And so one of it is topology. The other piece is just good engineering. Okay, basically, okay, you do this. We built the first prototype. We made it. It was kind of fast. Then we improved it, iterated, and then we built it from scratch again. Way more like more efficient and faster than the original, V1 than V0, let's call it. And we iterated and we iterated. Then we did that again. So in the early days, you can say, oh, if we do this, we'll shave 10 milliseconds. We don't have 10 milliseconds to shave at this point. Okay, we propagate information close to the speed of light. Okay, we propagate it very fast everywhere. And so like piece number two here is just good engineering. You get it, how you serialize, deserialize it, like do not waste time on copying and etc. Just being fast about it. A third piece, which is a bit more interesting, is that we realize this is more for blocks and shreds. If you think about blockchains, what happens, in the vanilla case is that transactions propagate around, and every so often a block comes out and it contains some of these, maybe all these transactions, maybe some of them that you didn't know. But in that money time where you want to propagate a block, well, you don't really need to propagate the transaction. The transaction you already propagated. You could, in theory, say, oh, just put here transaction 1, 5, 37, 46, 110, etc. Right? Because blocks are just basically a list of transactions, right? It's a header, some fields in it, version, timestamp, whatever, and then just a transaction in it. So in that money time where you want to propagate it, you don't really need to send it on the wire everywhere. You could just send the metadata for it. Any transaction that you already propagated and the system had seen already, you could just replace with a very short ID and decrypt it on the other side. So you put it in full, no data is being lost. You put full of it in, in one side. On the wire, you just send the metadata, and on the other side, you reconstruct it, and it's faster than sending like the full data. So that's a third piece. So like the caching of it. There was a fourth piece, which I'm missing. Probably the network effect. If we're connected to all the users, we see all the transactions and we're connected to all the value. So the more people who connect to us, the faster we become. And so, that was more like in the early days when we tried to get more people. At this point, we're connected to everybody and their sister. Okay, like every major validator out there, every major chain, also like L2s and etc. And so we found ourselves really as a lot of, let's say, wallets or trading terminals or Telegram bots, and like, oh, I want to offer my user to land transaction really fast and hear information really fast on all these chains. Like I could either work with like 7 different providers, or I could go to bloXroute, who I know they're good and they've been here for like 8 years. They've been around. I know they're not going to disappear or pivot in 6 months. And so that's why they come to us versus like we make a lot of money. We have a lot of competition. Every single vertical we operate, somebody say, oh, bloXroute is making money there. I should do that too, right? So we really have competition every single place that we do. But we have the track record, but we also multi-chain, right? So it's kind of like we support it and we give it everywhere. And maybe the last point on it is competitors basically have to do like a 0 to 1 to do what we do. They need to build the entire infrastructure and propagate it, and etc. Well, if we add a chain, right, like it takes us like 2-3 weeks and like a 10 to 11, right? I already paid the money for it. I already iterated for like 8 years. All of that. So it's very easy for me to add another project. I know where the value is. I know how to do it. And I don't have to reinvent the wheel and build support and build infrastructure and all that it takes to build it. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. Just to switch gear, right? How did Paladin come together? Because on one side, you mentioned at bloXroute, you built a product to send transaction faster, and also you built MEV protection, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you also have Paladin, which enables or empowers these validators to capture some of that MEV. So I'm curious to understand, your evolution towards.
So that's an interesting one, I think. So I am a giant DeFi book. Okay, like I got really red pilled on DeFi in 2019. For our listeners, like it's a short story, but it's very much worth like hearing, in my opinion. I heard it. I think it's the former head of the CFTC in the US. And he was saying how in 2008, when the subprime like crisis kind of like emerged, he was at the White House. Lehman Brothers is about to crash, and they're sitting there and they need to decide whether to save it or let it fall. And it's kind of like, listen, we have enough cash. We can responsibly keep it alive. Maybe two other banks like that. But if there are 20 banks underwater, we can't save it. We do not have enough money to hold all of them, and we let them crash. So what do? Do we save Lehman Brothers or we don't? Well, how many banks are underwater? Like the regulator should have all the information. All the books are open to it. He should know in theory. In practice, these are like 200 different banks on 200 different systems, and it takes literally like 4 years to connect all the books to understand who holds who and how much money they have, right? It's kind of like what banks did at the time was, okay, I give like a gazillion mortgages, and then I put them together, and then I let sell the mortgages to other people who take it, merge pieces from different ones, create a salami out of it, then slice this thing and then sell it to others. So everybody was holding everybody else's like debts and assets and whatever on completely different systems. And the White House like, we don't know how many like banks are underwater. So they let Lehman Brothers fail, and we had the 2008 crisis, like a major effect to so many sectors in the US, globally, you name it. And like 4 years later, they finish auditing the books and figure out like the connections. Like, you know what? There was just like one more bank. We could have saved Lehman Brothers and avoided most of the 2008 crisis if we had a single global, open, permissionless, transparent financial network for the world. So like, we talk about price discovery, we talk about trading, we talk about like privacy, etc. Just having these systems open and composable and integrate is a huge value. Us retail don't really know how to appreciate it as much. If you run a company, like think everything, how many shares do you have? Who hold everything around it, which isn't secret. Some of it is private, some of it is not. Like most of it should be open. That is kind of like, this is extremely, so I got really excited about DeFi. It's kind of like, this is the future. I want DeFi to kick ass and beat CeFi. And so I spent a lot of time in that. And the major problem, in my opinion, is MEV. I strongly disagree with Flashbot and what they did on Ethereum and created an auction and tried to max extract. That's not good for anybody. It did not push anybody in the right direction. I kind of hate seeing it playing out on Solana, literally shooting herself in the foot. And so because bloXroute is such a major actor in DeFi, that made us also a large actor in MEV. And so we started create like, on Ethereum, we run 2 of the 5 relays of MEV boost, etc. On BSC, we're a block builder and we give better blocks to BSC validators. When it came to Solana, I'm like, I don't want I told Jito, I like the Jito team. I hate their product. I told them to their face a lot of times over the years. I told them that creating the mempool and sandwiching would be bad. It was bad. They did the right thing and stopped with their mempool and sandwiching. But at that point, the cat was out of the bag and everybody got sandwiched. But the idea of Paladin was basically, could we offer an alternative? Right? It's kind of, it's easy to say you don't like it, right? It's kind of like, the question is, can you make it more profitable to act honestly, right? What's the problem? And maybe worth that for people who aren't very familiar, MEV is maximal extractable value. Okay, like basically, if somebody is about to buy $1 million worth of SOL, then if I see this before it execute, I could front run it. It's like, price of SOL is going to, I should buy it before he buys it because it's going to go up. And that actually hurts that first trade, okay? If I bought before him, then I move the price a bit, and so now he gets a worse price. And I could even do a sandwich. I could front run and back run. So I buy it, he buys it, pushes the price up, I sell it right immediately after him, I sandwich his transaction, and I made money. And all the money that I made came from his pocket, okay? All the money that I made came from him. He lost it. It's not like a victimless crime or whatever. It actually hurts him. Now, MEV doesn't actually pay that much money. It pays 0.2% APY or so. Like this isn't the big money. So if you think from a long-term perspective, if you're, again, taking Solana right now as an example, if you're a Solana validator or a staker, all the stakers together have I don't know, $100 billion worth of stake, okay? If that goes up by 1% in 5 years, it pays more than front running and sandwiching. Okay, what they should do is make it the best chain, so DeFi happens and it booms and all that, everything goes better. And in this alternative universe where there's no front running and sandwiching, etc., and DeFi is winning, if that world is just price of SOL just 5% higher, and it should be 5x higher, right? It should be 500%. But if it's just slightly higher, it pays more than MEV. Nobody should do it. That's the long term. The problem is the short term incentive. Sure, it would be great if everybody didn't do it, and we'll all benefit. But when I'm the leader and it's my turn, then I see a transaction buying $1 million worth of SOL. Well, I should buy just in front of him and sell after him. Okay, so this is a classic tragedy of the comet. Okay, the strategy that's better for everybody is not the same one. When at that time, my dominant strategy, i.e. the strategy that makes the most money, is that everybody kind of falls to, is that I actually sandwich it and everybody do it. And so nobody benefit. And it's a classic tragedy of the commons, right? Everybody would benefit if nobody did it, but when it's my turn, then I do it. And so everybody does it, and etc. So Paladin came out, and Paladin had 6 different iterations. It started I had one thing with pre-confirmation on Ethereum and using Solana and doing this, and then I really iterated a lot in the past, I don't know, 2-3 years now. And the idea was, how do I solve this problem? Okay, how do I align the short-term incentive with the long-term incentive? And it is possible to do it, mostly because users have power. So you could imagine if right now everybody are sandwiching and everybody are doing it, then it's kind of like traffic in India, right? Sure, there are stop signs and red lights and what, but everybody goes you can't even give a ticket to everyone. Literally everybody do it, so you can't get over it. But if you imagine, okay, if we could somehow incentivize everybody to do it for a short period of time, if we could incentivize everybody to behave and then somebody misbehave, then we could punish him, right? If nobody doing it, but then somebody misbehave, you don't need an objective proof or anything. Users should just skip it. Oh, this leader seems not legit to me. Like this, I think he sandwiched that guy. I should just skip him. Okay, why do I care? I'll just send my transaction and I'll skip one leader and I'll go to the next leader. At that point, if you sandwich people, if you front run, then you'll start making less money. People will skip you over. You lose. You'll make lower APY. Your stake would leave you. Everybody, like your validator, going to nothing. You really don't want to play with the apps and the users in playing this game. So if we could get people to act honestly for some period of time, then at that point, okay, becomes enforceable, right? It moves from, I don't know, from like India to, I don't know, like suburbia, I don't know, English suburb or something, right? Everybody follow the rules. They go when they're supposed to, being super polite. And if somebody goes in a red light, okay, everybody sees that he goes in a red light. Everybody goes, oh, even if I think he went in a red light, like, why should I take the chance? So this becomes like, you could align the incentives. So Paladin idea, and again, we had multiple iterations over it, is could we build a client? Paladin is a fork of Agave, it's a fork of Firedance, like a patch on top of it, and basically say, could we make more money for validators who don't play these games, who don't include sandwiches and don't do all these things and just act honestly? Does that kind of make sense? And this is, I went down that path because I want DeFi to beat CeFi. It took way more time and way more money from me than it was worth it in terms of like it's not a good investment in that regard. But I want DeFi to win. So, you do what you, it's not even a choice. You kind of have to do it. No, they're doing it wrong. We need to fix it. Does that make sense?
How does Paladin align incentives? You mentioned, the idea of Paladin is to align incentives especially for non-malicious or, honest leaders, right? How are the incentives aligned?
Excellent question. So it goes like this, okay? The main so we explained what sandwiching is, right? So it's kind of like when you come before and after. Jito, if you don't know, a major product on Solana, basically imported this idea of bundles from Ethereum. Okay, so basically you could send, here's my front-run transaction, a trigger transaction, and the back-run transaction. I could send them as a bundle to the leader, and they will try to execute it. Now, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But the bundle does a cool thing that's called drop on revert. Okay, basically, if it doesn't work, you don't pay money, like the entire thing doesn't go on chain. So if there's $100 to be made in sending a bundle, then you send it and you don't pay the $100 unless you made a profit. So Jito really combines three different things. Okay. A bundle, okay, multiple transactions execute one by one, which is the least it's the most anti IBRL. Okay, it's really not IBRL. Stop everything. I want this one, and then this one, and then this one. Don't do it. No, nothing should go next to it or whatever. So it's bundled transaction. It is a drop on revert. Okay, it either like atomic. Either everything is successful or it reverts and get dropped. And tips. Instead of paying in a normal priority fee, you pay a tip to Jito, and they get 5%, and they pass 95% to 30%. Now, bundles are toxic. They suck really bad. They're really only good for sandwiching, and very, very little else. Could you use them for other things? Yes. Anything good? Not really. Okay, like the people say, what about backrunning? We are among the pioneers of backrunning. We've been doing it for 5 years. Backrunning is a terrible solution. Okay, backrunning is like, you send a trade which is executed so badly that I could go after it, right? You traded $1 million in just one venue, and you move the price so much, so I will come and I will buy somewhere else, and I correct it, and even though I pay them fee, I make money, and there's money. That means it was so bad that you could capture money after that. If that is the case, what you want to do is not in the last moment go and correct the ARB. In the last moment, you should do the trading routing, right? We have made a long way in the past 5 years, whether that's Jupiter, whether that's Titan, other just do the trade routing better. Backrunning doesn't it really isn't a compelling use case. Another one, I think, squads are using bundles. Okay, I really like squads. They're a great project, etc. But it's not because they really need bundles. It's because transactions are too small. Okay, and they wanted to do a lot of it to do it cheaply or whatever. Well, we're increasing the size of transaction. If we want to do more stuff, we should increase the size of transaction. We shouldn't add bundles, which only create significant damage, okay, and really hinders DeFi for that. So bundles suck. And tip also suck. Like really tip. You could say that originally, 50% of the priority fee got burned, so it was a way you could pay the validator, like instead of getting half of it burned or whatever. You really don't need tips, not even for drop on revert, right? You could say instead of paying a priority fee, you could put an instruction that pass the money to the leader. And if the transaction fails, then you don't pay that money. Okay, it only goes in if successful. Is it good for Jito? Sure, because it pays them the 5%, but like it's not a really compelling use case. So the really valuable thing that Jito brought in is the drop on revert. Okay, but again, what you're really getting there is not, the value is not dropping. Nobody cared if the transaction dropped or not. What you really want is pay only if successful, right? It's kind of like, only I will pay $100 to include this transaction, but only if it's successful. I don't want to pay you if it reverts. And again, we just said you could do this with an instruction, like natively. Put another instruction in the transaction that pays, and then money only goes to the leader if it goes through or not. And so when I look at the, people call it microstructure nowadays, right? But you look at the landscape and like what Jito and now 𝗜𝗺𝗽𝗀 came out with Harmonic. We can talk about that too. What Paladin does is like, this is all misaligned, skewed incentives, okay? What Paladin does is says, well, instead of putting bundles first, even if they pay less money, and transaction goes after, which kind of like incentivizes everybody to send their transaction as bundles, because bundle go first, even if they pay less, right? Okay, so that, again, good for Jito, not necessarily good for everybody else. So instead of putting bundles first before everybody else, take all transactions, take all bundles, order them by reward by per CU, okay, like reward by how much compute they take, and order by that. Whoever pays the most, transaction or bundle or whatever, just like put that in and use this idea, right, like the drop on revert, or really pay only if successful, to let people pay directly to the leader, and the leader will make more money. Right? If you use the pay only if successful instead of a tip, immediately you make 5% more, because like tips, Jito takes 5%. But more importantly, put whoever pays you the most. Is it transaction? Whoever pays you most money, this is who you should put first. Not first do all the bundles and then do the transaction or something like that. So just cleaning all that out should make more money to the leader. So the idea is like, okay, just do that. Next, really, I don't want to support bundles. I think bundles suck. We're going to multiple concurrent leader. We can talk about it in a bit, but like in multiple concurrent leader world, where you have multiple leaders, each one proposes a partial block. It's kind of like, okay, I propose a thing, 𝗏𝗏 proposes a thing, 𝗏𝗺𝗽𝗀 proposes a thing. And then the network itself is like, okay, all of them is one bundle, and order them by priority fee. There are no bundles there. There's no such thing. Like transaction will be like ordered by all sorts of stuff, by what other people. Bundles don't work there at all. They're not ordered in the way that you wanted them to order. You can't do drop and revert, whether they're because you don't know if a transaction will be successful or will revert. None of it works. So this is like a thing that shouldn't exist, in my opinion. And so going back to like, how do you align incentive? You make it more profitable. In my opinion, like, I don't want to, currently I have to support bundles because like, okay, there's money there and the idea is to make them more money. But it is like, get rid of bundles completely, like get rid of sandwiching, etc. Make it very easy for people to see whether the transactions are ordered by reward per CU or not. Anybody not ordering by reward by CU should get should start being avoided, right? It's gonna start skipping. That looks weird to me. I will skip that. Okay, so everybody should be doing that in real time. A few more things around. You could also, but does that make sense?
Yeah. So if I understood it correctly, the major unlock here is that as a user, as a user of a DeFi application, I also have the opportunity to pay a slightly higher fee to ensure that the transaction that I am sending does not get sandwiched, right?
No. Like that's always
Okay.
like that's in theory that's always the case. But you should pay however you need to pay in order to land your transaction, which should be very little, unless you're touching some like, okay, this is a hot account, I'm trying to land it, everything is full. Like, maybe you should pay more. In reality, no. Like transaction go through no matter what. We see like fees and tips like really fell off a cliff because of it. Okay, because you just send a transaction and it lands. The idea is that as a user, and more so, your app is an aggregator of the user. Okay, Jupiter or Axiom or Phantom or whoever, right? They are the aggregators of users. They should decide where to send your transaction. And they should send it to validators who order it by reward per CU. Again, fee or tip, like, shouldn't care. It should become like ordered by that. And you can see it on chain, like how the transaction came out and etc. And you should skip those that, if you look at sandwich.me, right, from the great team, the Ghost team, which is awesome. If a validator has a lot of sandwiches or doesn't order the transaction that way or does anything funky, skip it. Okay? Don't take a chance. Just skip that one. And that incentivizes all validators in the short term not to play these games, right? The long term is already aligned. Nobody should do it. Everybody should just put the transaction as they should and not play funny games, and that would make everybody rich. But the short-term incentive is a problem. So we should really give like users, and especially their apps and their aggregators, a big stick. If you mess around, we'll kick your ass. You will lose money. Okay, we'll start going like away and going others. Then just skipping you and send it to the next leader. And that aligns the short-term incentive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm curious. How does the user specify this? Like, does this happen at the app level or at the user level? Can the user really specify they don't want to be associated with a validator?
So it's a great question, and it really depends, and you could do it in multiple ways. In most users shouldn't know nor care about any of it. They're trying to use an app. They don't understand the architecture. Like, sure, if you're, me, you, whoever, okay, like, we like this stuff. Okay, cool. I will do this, and I will do this block this or whatever. Like Triton has a good product called Shield, and etc. So it really should be the apps, from my perspective, as aggregators of users. And apps should do it because users should look, oh, this app is protecting me. And those like how many sandwiches happening to people using this app versus using that app? How much money did these users lost versus in one app versus the other? So apps should be the ones doing the legwork. Okay, like, oh, which app? And it's very easy to decide who to send, or it's not like rocket science. Right now, I got the transaction. Is the current leader really like, is it okay or not okay? If it looks okay, send it to it. It's not okay, send to the next one. That's it. It's not like rocket science in any way, etc. I kind of have this thought at the back of my mind. Does it make sense to allow this at the protocol layer? Right? It's kind of like, could I make a transaction that could only go to validators within this set, right? And like could not go to others? Maybe it does, but maybe it's an overkill. Maybe just the app do it and don't send to that leader. Right? It's everything is happening in real time. Get the transaction, look at the leader. Is it good or not? It looks good, send to it. It looks bad, skip it and go to the next one. So it should be the user, but the user at this point is the app, the aggregator of its own users. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Switching gears a bit, I'm very curious. Initially started off with Ethereum and EVM, right? And you mentioned Polygon, BNB. How is it different to move to Solana? And I don't know if you're on other chains as well that are not EVM. In terms of hiring engineering talent, in terms of whatever the day-to-day looks like in building something like this, and like a specific innovation on Solana, for example, BAM. Does that affect the kind of hires you have to make, the kind of engineering talent that is needed?
So talent is hard in general, but also a lot of the time, it's like we pay fair salaries, but we're not like other projects that are like blast through the roof. We see like a competitor comes in and etc. And they're trying and they're paying a lot, and a year and a half later, they're gone or whatever. It's gonna like, sure, like, okay, that's their VC money, like that's fine. But it's gonna like, we're trying to find just good engineers from our perspective. Okay, you could learn the specific. It's cool if you have people who are, crypto native and they're also on Twitter, they understand the space, but then they also waste so much time like being on Twitter and etc. So you need a good balance. You want some people being like crypto native, and okay, if they don't only understand the technology, they understand the ecosystem, they understand that, like they really understand all of it. That's very, very valuable. But you also want engineers who really could not care less. And they're like, oh, I just want to do here. I build my infrastructure thing and I go home. And they're a lot more effective in terms of like how much time I waste. Oh, there's that thing that I need to answer to. And like all the stuff. So you really want a good balance of both. That's in general. But it's more so on Solana. One thing that was extremely hard for me on Paladin is finding somebody who could touch the Firedancer client, right? Firedancer is written in C. How many people in our ecosystem can touch the Firedancer client? Like 5. Like literally, like nobody's doing it. Nobody touches it, etc. So like people to play around with Agave, like which is in Rust. Okay, you want smart people, etc. I love the 𝗼𝗺𝗽 team. Okay, so 𝗼𝗺𝗽, if you don't know, they're kind of they're doing like demos and they're building projects, etc. It's kind of like an educational thing. And then they're kind of like, okay, you go to them and you pay them like a fee, like, okay, I need somebody to do this, this, and this, and like you hire through them. So they're like training plus hiring plus like project plus community plus something. So I really like them, and I got some like really great engineer references from them. But but again, Rust is easier. Agave is easier. Quite a lot of people could do smart contract at this point. Okay, like EVM and SVM. That doesn't matter. I find myself often in the validator code. Okay, like it's kind of like deeper than most other projects in that regard. That was true on EVM. That's true also for like both on Ethereum and Solana and everywhere. So my hiring needs are different than most in that regard, and it's hard. But mostly find good engineer. You need find a good engineer who knows what he's doing, and find somebody who understands what's going on in Solana. And between the two of them, they could figure it out, right? Kind of like you need both. And if you're lucky, it's the same person. This is like maybe the best engineer I know is Oliver, who helped me pick out create Paladin. Now he's at Anza, and okay. He's really talented. He's really smart. He's very professional, and he understands crypto, and he understands trading. Sure, that's like 1 in a million. You don't get lucky to meet many Olivers out there.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Amazing. I think I'm out of questions here. 𝗭𝗍, do you have any more questions to add?
Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on multiple concurrent leaders. How do you think that changes things?
So right now, let's talk about multiple. It's funny. I'm literally writing a thread about it. Like maybe my thread about it will come out before this episode.
Awesome.
There are 2 things. There's multiple concurrent leaders, or 3 things. 4, really. Multiple concurrent leaders, and you have BAM from Jito, and you have Harmonic from 𝗼𝗺𝗽, and you have what Jito is doing now. And so multiple concurrent leader is awesome. It is really a breakthrough in that regard. Like Max working super hard on it, Max Resnick, and like, okay, let's get 𝗼𝗺𝗀 out the door. Alessandro from us, like I don't know why you think it will take that long. This shouldn't take that long. Like this isn't like far into the future. This is not like a 5-year roadmap. This is like 2027. Okay, and so the idea of multiple concurrent leaders, we said it earlier. You have multiple leaders at the same time. Every 50 milliseconds, they create like a partial block, and that's all accepted by the network, which creates a single block out of that, etc. And why is that valuable, and why is that super cool? Because it breaks the leader monopoly. Okay, like leaders could do all these games because they not only control the ordering of the transaction, but they also control what goes in and what doesn't go in. Right, so an app could say, oh, I don't care about the order. I will just like get bids and I'll choose the highest one, to make the trade, and like that will decide the price or whatever. But the leader could easily say, oh, I'll put my transaction, I'll just censor everything else. And so like that app can't beat me, right? It's kind of, I can still extract value from it. multiple concurrent leaders mean like, okay, I keep the other transaction out, but then another leader will put them in. So it's kind of like you can't play that game, and that really opens up a world of design for DeFi that is closed right now. Okay, it doesn't even matter at that point whether your transaction comes first or second, etc., because the order doesn't even matter that much. You could like have like the protocol look at the different transaction and decide what to execute first. It is very, very cool. Okay, and so that's multiple concurrent leaders. It's coming out. It's going to change how DeFi works. It's going to change a lot of things. Now, between now and then, we talked about Jito, right? They send bundles. They send to the leader. The leader, it's slightly different. In Fire Dancer, they literally execute the bundles, then execute the transactions, right? It's kind of like two different trips. And so like they do one, then they do the other. On Agave, basically, all the bundles come in. It takes all the locks for itself. So other, random transactions, they don't touch anything important or there's any activity that like could execute by them, but really they all execute, and only when they finish, they let the transaction execute. So Jito really brought the MEV auction idea from Ethereum. In Ethereum, you have PBS, you have multiple like builders. Jito basically made themselves the only builder. Okay, they call it the block engine, but it's a very similar idea. But at least it's continuous, right? It's kind of like they do this and they set the bundle, etc. So that's the baseline of what Jito is doing now. Now, Harmonic from 𝗜𝗺𝗽𝗀 just came out and they say, well, let's not do that. Why only Jito is running a block engine? Let's have a competition. Competition is good, right? So let's have multiple block builders, and whoever offers the best, like they could send bids through like Harmonic, and the best bid will win and would go to the leader. And so that sounds good in theory. It has two major problems. The first major problem, like I wrote about like a year ago, the first major problem is that it really hurts Solana. It moves from real-time continuous transaction inclusion and etc., which is a cool feature of Solana and what makes it good for trading and etc. And now it turns it into discrete. Okay, here's a full block after 400 milliseconds. It's kind of like you don't get stuff in between. So that's really is taking us back. That is not a good thing for Solana. Nobody will tell you it's a good thing for Solana. The second thing is, well, they're going to pay more for the validator. So it makes sense to take whoever plays more. They'll have different strategies. One will do one thing, then the other, and whoever has the best strategy will win. That, my friend, is bullshit. Okay? Like, sure, there are strategies. It's slightly changed. The only thing that really matter, and we know this from PBS on Ethereum and MEV-Boost, and we have years of experience with it, is private order flow. Okay? If you have three builders and they all basically got the same transaction, they all kind of like have the same stuff, but one of them also got one transaction that pays an extra $1, then he would win. Okay? Because he got private order flow. He could put it in and he could bid higher than everybody else. And the game to be played is, if you're big and early, you'll subsidize it. You actually pay money out of your own pocket to be a major block builder. Then, because you're big, people would send you, say like, oh, I'll give you half of the money back, right? I'll give you kickback. Get order flow. At that point, you're even better at winning, right? That's why Ethereum had like 95% of blocks were built by two actors, right? Like Beaver and rsync. Okay. Beaver and Titan. rsync already left at that point. So it really is a winner takes all situation. So this really, let's centralize all the order flow to the block builder, and he gets that and he offers. At that point, he stops subsidizing, just start to extract value, because he's doing it to make money. How does it make money? Because he got the private order flow, and he's like, I don't need to bid that high to beat the competition because I have private order flow that they don't. I could pay $100 less. I'll keep $50 to myself. I give $50 to those who send me the private order flow. This is bad. This is how it's going to play out. Kind of terrible. And that's what's kind of like Harmonic I'm really against it. And again, that also doesn't work with MCP. This is all like temporary solution for like in 2 years from now, none of it would work, right? Like MCP is going to change the ordering. Like, I don't care what the builder put in there, whatever order, it's going to work based on the order that like MCP is going to like order them. So that's like piece number 2, right? Like, so we have Jito, what they're doing now. You have Harmonic. Now, Jito is working on BAM, right? BAM is saying like, well, you know what? How about we create, here's how we order transactions. And you have like what they're called like plugins, basically allowing apps to decide how transactions are to be ordered. And then we give it to BAM nodes. Okay, they run it on a T, on a trusted execution environment. So basically, you have these, here's the code, you have to run it as is. Okay, it's in a T, you can't change anything, otherwise nobody will work. So you have, it's kind of like a single server that's running it, or like multiple replicas running the same server. And then validators who work with BAM say, oh, you just put in whatever the BAM sent you in that order. You can't add transaction. You can't remove transaction. You literally are a rubber stamp of what BAM sent you. Okay, if BAM sent you transaction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe you saw another transaction 6. You can't put it in. You could only rubber stamp what BAM had sent you. Now, at that point, like, then what's the point of the decentralized like validator set? If this is the reality and we should use BAM and just like, what are the validators even doing in that world? Like, why do we even need them? Just use BAM. Oh, you want T? Well, tell the validator to run in a T if you want to participate. Like, I don't get the design. And so like this, is that good for us, for Solana to get like equities trading on chain? I don't think so. Like the value, why can we run and we don't need a license from the SEC for equities? Well, because it's decentralized. Is it decentralized if there is like, here's the code and you have to run it as is and you can't include you can't change anything, right? How is that different than, I don't know, Kraken taking their exchange and running a code on like 3 Ts running like in 3 different regions, or, one Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure, I don't know, whatever. Like, is that, maybe it is, but it's not clear that it is. Like, how decentralized is it or not? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not sure it gets the same decentralization properties like the validator said that being decentralized for a few like that we have right now. So that's the world that we live in, right? It's kind of like we're going toward multiple concurrent leader. This is really coming really soon, and we have these actors speed running all the mistakes the Flashbot did over the years on Ethereum, right? It's kind of like, so BAM, by the way, is just like copy pasting what's it called, BuilderNet that Flashbot is working right now. Now, it's not that Flashbot actually won, right? It's got Flashbots are doing it on Ethereum, and Ethereum has spent the last like 3 years like, well, how do we put it in protocol and like EPBS, and we're now thinking of like Fossil. How do we add center like. And I'm running 2 of the 5 trusted relays on Ethereum. Okay, I'm running 2 of them, and they were like supposed to be there for like 12 months. This has been going for over 3 years now. It's a temporary solution to use trusted like relays. They're still here. We're still here. We're still doing it. So, in my opinion, and again, I'm an opinionated guy. You don't have to agree with me, but in my opinion, we're really like trying to speed run all the designs and whatever like came from Flashbot, when Flashbot really didn't make it work and they are working like their own L2 Swave thing, whatever. We want, let's say Eugene from Ellipsis, who I like a lot. He's a great guy. He's super smart. He's like that. He's like, they build Phoenix, they build SoFi, and they're building something else right now. And he's saying, listen, fragmentation of how transactions are being ordered is really bad for us. Okay, for apps to work, we've seen this with prop AMMs. We need to know how transactions are being ordered. If we don't know how the transactions are going to be ordered, then we can't let our users quote really tightly, right? It's kind of like prop AMMs is this smart thing where it's extremely cheap to send an Oracle update, so what the price is, and trading takes a lot more compute units. Okay, so if it's 100x or 1000x, then you could imagine that if an Oracle update is paying a cent, then anybody who wants to make a trade to take advantage needs to pay at least like $10. Okay, so it's gonna, by making that thing, that was a super insightful, smart thing to do. You could actually make it, they said, really fast, cheap updates that keep getting to the front of the queue because they pay really high reward per CU because their CU are tiny, okay, like the compute units, and that's really smart. But if the transactions are not ordered by reward by ECU, then the entire thing doesn't work. So Eugene says, and rightfully so, if we don't know how it works, we can't, as an app developer, I can't really let my user code really tight enough. It affects the microstructure. Now, fragmentation, if you have BAM and Jito and Harmonic and Paladin and Vanilla and whatever, that's actually worse, or it's bad. Okay, like they won't know how it really depends on the leader. Each leader does a different thing, etc. We want everybody to do the same thing. BAM, Jito are saying that, well, BAM gives everybody do the same thing. It allows for ACE, applications like controlled execution. Yes. Basically, the app can decide how things execute. I argue that the cost is too high and the value is too low. Okay. I don't think we need ACE. I think ACE is a red herring. Okay. We've seen that prop AMMs could compete with CeFi if transactions are ordered by reward by CU. I think that gives us like 95% of the value of ACE. I have yet, and I try to ask like people who build DEXs, like, what would you use it for? Like, how could you make it better with ACE? I don't think ACE above reward by CU gives that much value. The cost, in my opinion, is huge. The cost of like basically the validator set doesn't do anything. Okay, just like a rubber stamp of whatever BAM sent them. I don't think so. So their argument, and again, I'm probably doing a bad job about it because they believe in it and I don't. But they argue is that like you get ACE from it, and ACE is very important if we want to compete with CeFi, and the cost isn't high. Right? It's kind of like it works and it's fine. I argue that the cost is huge and the value is little. So like, oh, we want this? Well, why don't we? Why can't we? Let's try to get all the validators to order by reward by CU. And then does that make sense? Again, not to agree with me, not that I don't, but is my argument clear? Like, what is what I'm saying clear? That like, here's what they're saying, and here's what I'm saying, like that they're wrong on. Even Solana people, they don't really know how transactions are being ordered. They don't know that bundles go before transaction, even if they pay less for no reasonable reason. They don't know like how but they don't. It's got like, you see the headlines. Oh, this is good. This is bad. Like, oh, it's funny to see Jito and Pro like on the timeline. It's kind of like, we really won't ban because that thing is terrible. It's like, no, competition is good. We don't. It's funny, but really, people should understand how the thing works and the details and the nuance of it, and then they could make up their own minds.
Totally agree. Yep. On that note, thank you so much, Uri, for your time. It was great having you. All the best with Paladin, and bloXroute is doing amazing.